Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast. For each week, we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We are here tonight. We have bellied up. I don't know if I should be. I don't know if I can drink tonight. I don't know if I can drink tonight because the reason behind if I couldn't drink tonight is because we're talking about hot rods and cars, and you shouldn't drink and drive. It's not a positive thing to do. So I don't know if I can drink tonight. But we've got a man who said he's willing to zip around. He's going to take care of me. He's going to zip in, zip out, and zip over here and grab everything that we need and take care of. He might even be our DD for us. Joining us from parts unknown. It's Florida. It's hot as shit. It's like, I don't even know how you can build a car down there with the salt air and everything else. Like, you're supposed to only do Arizona.
Wasn't the best decision.
It's not the best. But joining us from all the way from Florida, and I won't call him Simon. What was I calling you yesterday? Simons?
Simmons. It's Simons.
It's Simons, but I was calling you Simmons, but it's Simons. But joining us from Street Metal Concept, it's Zip Simmons.
How you doing?
What's up, brother?
Good to see you.
How are things in the tropical rainforest that is Florida?
Very hot for sure. This is like kind of the part of the year that you curse yourself for living here. It's not overly long, you know, and it is more months enjoyable. So I think it pans out. I mean, I've been here since '89, and
it don't mean shit to you.
I'll go on a vacation for a week and to visit the snow. You know, I grew up in the snow and loved it in Massachusetts, and moved down here, and then was bummed that we didn't have it. But you know, my parents moved because they were sick of it, and you know, so it
explains everything, Zip. So you're a masshole at heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, masshole. I mean, the car thing makes even more sense. You're a masshole at heart. You want to go fast and just cut people off. It makes sense to me now.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and knock down a little bit of house cleaning before we get into it. We're talking hot rods and whether it's worth it to build a hot rod. And hot rod season is here. We're getting ready here in a couple weeks. Meet up some friends from camp. We're going up to Saratoga for Saratoga Nationals are coming up. So it's all about them. It's all about the car. So real quick, folks, if you're joining us on the live view, over my right shoulder, and if you're not and you're listening to the podcast, we've got Sticker and a Cause. Sticker and a Cause is a pretty simple idea here, folks. If you've got your own podcast, maybe you have a race club like Good Guys here in New York, and you want to support that and you want other people to know about it, well, you can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, even Instagram, and our email. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Reach out to me. Let me know what you got going on. I'll tell you the address. You send me a sticker. I'll put the sticker on the big board, and we'll talk about it. I've actually got one. Where did my wife do with my sticker? There it is. I got to put this one up. This is not a Sticker and a Cause sticker. This is just my spirit animal, Anthony Bourdain. So I need to go ahead and put that on the big board. But yeah, you send me out a message, and we'll put it up there. But you know, Zip kind of and I were joking around about it with the weather and temperature and things going on. Well, up here in the Albany area, things are heating up in August, and our sponsors, Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, are running a special right now. Buy two window treatments, get a third one free. That's right, folks. Buy two, get one free. And these aren't your typical store-bought. Somebody may have to cut them down for you, or you hope that it fits into your windows. These are all custom window treatments to include, if you're up here in the Northeast, probably one of the most popular ones was actually invented here in the capital region, which are honeycomb shades. You know what those are there, Zip? You ever heard of a honeycomb shade?
I don't think so.
So up here in the Northeast, they actually, if you turn them sideways, they look like a honeycomb shade. So they actually will insulate your windows. One of the companies they were telling me about, they actually have R values to their honeycomb shades.
Wow.
Where they can add an additional 4.5% or 4.55 R value to a window. May not sound like much, but if you've got a big draft in that window, it'll make a big difference. So look, reach out to the folks at Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson Coxsackie. Let them know you're there to belly up to the bar, and they're going to make sure you get that buy two, get one free deal. All right, Zip. The bar's open. The cars are parked. The keys were all hanging up so we all can have a beverage. We're not racing for pinks today
No.
or stinks. So none of those things are happening. But brother, I mean, folks, if you go look up Street Metal Concepts, you can go to streetmetalconcepts.com or factoryish.com. That's their other line, and see some of the things that these guys are doing. If you don't know what SEMA is, go look up what SEMA is. Um, these guys have been at SEMA. You were at SEMA your first year, wasn't it?
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
You're
It was only, I think, a month and a half after we opened, and we ended up with a build in our hands to debut at SEMA in, end of October, beginning of November. I forgot the exact date, but it wasn't a lot of time. Jeff Allison Customs, had started on the car, and basically he was a full-time airline pilot and was kind of favor restoring it for Robert Kibbe, and he's got a good podcast, The Muscle Car Place. But so he was, I can't get this done in time, you know. So they were looking, and he didn't do paint and body already, so they were searching for somebody. And so basically, we took the car in, finished the metal work, finished all the body and paint, and got the car together. It went back out to Jeff and got the interior and wiring, and literally got pushed into SEMA and looked like a complete car. You know, it got top pick of SEMA. I mean, that's kind of common.
But folks, I know we're kind of down the line with this, but it is the start of Street Metal Concepts. But the other side to this is I don't think people understand. If you don't know what SEMA is, or you've never been around it, all I can tell you is to do that in a month would be the equivalent of an athlete going and somebody saying, "Hey, you're a pretty good baseball player. We need you to go ahead and be the starting pitcher in a month from now and in the World Series." Oh, and by the way, it's game 7 and we're looking for you to win it for us. Like that's what that is. That's like SEMA is, I mean, maybe short of like going to Meacham with like some crazy custom, but I don't know of anything bigger. Pebble Beach.
It's definitely become a platform for builders to display what they do and really make names for themselves. You know, it's really just a trade show, you know, and the intent of it was for people that produce parts to bring them there, and people that sell parts to see what's new and available, and then okay, now they can add some stuff to the lines that they sell, and they would use custom cars to highlight these parts, you know. But then people started bringing in some really crazy builds, and then it became a competition, and everybody's trying to outdo each other, and you know, it's fun. You know, we haven't been back since 2013.
You don't have to. You've already proven yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a cool event. We got invited by Ford a couple years ago to display a car we had finished, and I had just driven to Texas to deliver the car to the owner that we built it for. Just got home, and I get an email from Ford, and they want us to bring the car out and see it in their booth. And you know, cool. That's a neat opportunity. Oh, I'm in Ford's booth. I'm a cool dude now. But that's about all you get out of it. You know, right. I was like, are you paying for me to take another 2 weeks off from work and drive back out to Texas and pick this up and then bring it up to Las Vegas and babysit?
Yeah, they weren't trying to hear all that.
Right. And they're like, no, you should be honored. I was like, well, I'm honored you asked.
I'll take my honor there. But, you know, let's kind of roll this back even further, though. You know, I know I was joking about it on our pre-show on TikTok. My dad, growing up as a kid, had a 68 Camaro with a 302 fire engine red with the black top, fish gills in the back. And it was a 302, which a lot of people don't know. Chevy had a 302 that was ported, polished, and blueprinted and ran like a scalded dog. And so we had that. We had a 48 Packard as a kid. I've owned an 80 T-top with a 400 big block in it. And my wife has a 66 Thunderbird. We love cars around here. But I'm going to ask you something, Zip. because I don't know if she's watching or if she's listening. I'll know here in a minute because she'll come down the steps and give me a dirty look. If I tell you what my address is, will you come get a car off my property and make it disappear?
Depends if you're paying.
I don't care. My wife bought years ago a 1983 Firebird for $600. She was so excited about the car. I said to her, I said, "You paid $600 and got it and brought me home a V6 Firebird." She goes, "No, it doesn't have a V6 in it." I said, "You got a V8 Firebird for $600?" She goes, "No." I said, "What the hell's in it? Do you know what's in it, Zip?"
Nothing.
A 4-cylinder Iron Duke.
What?
Do you know what they used to put those in?
No.
Fieras, Pontiac Fieras.
No way.
So the same engine that was in the Pontiac Fiera is sitting inside of my 83 Firebird that's sitting
None
outside.
of those came in it.
Yes, that was a factory option.
Oh, really? That was an option?
It was a factory option because it was the gas crunches of the early 80s.
Right.
So, but that kind of leads me into my next question. My wife would love to restore that. And she's like, "Oh, it would be so great. It's a rare engine. It's this, that, and the other." And we've talked about it. And here you are, a car guy, and you're like, didn't even know that was a thing. What are some of the things that when people come to you, and folks, we're going to jump right into like just talking about hot rods. I love them. But what are some of the things that when people come to you with cars and go, "Zip, restore this"? What are some of the things that like you tell them that just hurt their feelings?
Pretty much everything right off the bat. I mean, first, I really don't even need to see the car. I need to know what you're trying to achieve with it, and then the car will come into play. If they're looking to build this super high end pro touring machine, that can drive across the country and compete in autocross, there's a lot you're asking for out of that. If you're just trying to restore it back to original, it's a lot less, but still a lot of money. And most times, way more money than the car is worth in the end. That every car has a market value, and that's what it's worth. That wavers, but if you have a early Ferrari GTO 250, you can spend all the money restoring it and it's worth way more. That's a good investment.
Right.
But, those aren't really my thing. I think they're neat, but I'm a muscle car guy. And, classic American is really where it's at for me. And, and so most of our clientele is in the same boat. We have done a little bit of European stuff. And, some people, they just want our quality, and we're happy to execute it, if they're looking for that. And that's really what we started was high quality, bar setting, level. And so I've learned over the years to have a very serious educational conversation with customers when they come in the door and help them understand the time and costs that are truly involved, the weight it really has for your emotional fulfillment, because these are unnecessary toys that nobody needs. A lot of people want them, but there's a lot to know. I mean, we've built cars over $400,000, and part of my spiel in the beginning is it's still not a Toyota Corolla.
Right, it won't last as long.
That's a multi-million-dollar engineered machine. I'm taking a car that was engineered in the 60s. Okay, I might put a modern chassis and a modern drivetrain, but it's still going to have the characteristics when you shut the door and the way the window fits and, and all of it. We can do a lot of hours and modifications to really bring that up a level and make it fit and act better. But it's still not a Toyota Corolla where everything just works perfect and is warranted forever. And,
Great point.
And those are, and, saying those kind of things to people makes them think. I hear almost every time. I never thought of it like that. And good. I'm glad we talked about this now and you thought about that now before we entered into a relationship that was doomed for disaster. I mean,
and nothing ever lasts on him. And George, who a good buddy of mine, and look, folks, you want another great podcast? Check out Outlaw Blitz. Those guys. George, I have to ask you if to let me know. Am I going to see you at if you didn't know, I don't know if you're into wrestling or not, Zip, but the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame is in Albany.
oh,
And
no way.
not this weekend coming up, but the weekend after that on the 26th is the convention and Hall of Fame inductions coming up. So I will be there.
Nice. Yeah. Well, George is asking advice for a young man building his dream car. I definitely have advice. If you are willing to learn how to do it yourself, it doesn't matter how long it takes. You can mess up a bunch of times until you get it right. And you're still not going to spend anywhere near, especially if you're just trying to make your car a little better, restore things, put some new suspension, figure out how to fix a rust hole and weld. And I mean, I have young guys come in that they want to apprentice, and today's age frowns on people being in the shop and not being under your payroll and insurance and
Oh
work
yeah.
up. And I'm like, what happened to the way it worked? You bring in a young guy who's eager to learn and let him watch, and then start letting them touch, and then start letting them do, and until he becomes a highly trained professional. It's like, it's sad. I mean, trades in general seem to be frowned on. I kind of see a little bit of light opening on it, to be honest. That I don't know how it is there, but just on a state level, I've seen commercials and stuff about trades, and I like seeing that. We're fucked if the
Oh,
trades go
absolutely.
away. That's the honest
That's a
truth.
whole. Oh my God, that's a whole thing, brother. Like with it's that. Remember, it's the guy who lives in the $1 million house calls the guy to pull the shit out of his toilet.
Right.
And what he doesn't realize is the guy who goes and pulls the shit out of his $1 million house lives in a $2 million house because he goes and sees all the millionaires and
Right.
takes out of their pocket. It's an absolute fact. And I think you've got a great point for George. You know what? You got time to learn how to do these things. And that actually kind of brings up, and I love Nate. Nate said, yes, we know that all the muscle cars can go to space. Thank you, Fast and the Furious. For all muscle cars are spaceships. Nate, that's a whole thing we could talk about. We're not putting my wife's car in the Derby. I've thought about it, and it's a
I probably won't end well for you.
no. Well, we had my 66, the 66. I got to put a new battery in it. But it's funny you mentioned trades. We had to get the just a seat reupholstered. Took months, and it was even more to find somebody who could do the work
It's
to get
hard.
into.
There's more people leaving, passing, than coming into the industry. And I'm sure that's on all trade levels.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody wants to go work their tail off for their money. They want to figure out how to get money easy.
Can I be a YouTuber like Mr. Beast, and
Right.
you guys just throw money at me so I can go throw it at other people? Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
no,
I had a really good paying job before I opened my business.
look, I just had that conversation with somebody where the guy went from a nice 6-figure job and opened his own business, and he said his kids were like, "Well, can't you help me out with this?" He's like, "I don't make that kind of money." Well, why'd you leave your job? Well, for these reasons. Well, that was stupid. Okay. So
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if my son's 12. I wonder if he'll ask me that, because I mean, I left my job because of my son.
Mhm.
Was working a 6-figure job, and after my wife Brittany and I had our son Lane, the meaning of life changed. I was building hot
100%.
rods in my garage for me, and I was like, we decided to move because where I was from Orlando when I met her, she was from down south, and so I moved down there. Then after we had our son, none of our friends had kids, and my old friends from Orlando did have kids. We come up to visit for a weekend. We're like, wow, I really like that lifestyle, hanging out with other dads and moms and their kids are playing and we're barbecuing and it was a nice weekend. So we decided to move, so we liquidated, sold the house and that was where I was, initially we wanted to move. I was going to change jobs. I could get the same job in Orlando. And
what kind of work were you doing, if you don't mind me
I
asking?
was doing collision, auto
Okay.
collision. It was still a trade, but it
Absolutely.
was, and that's where, don't get me wrong, like you can just go to school for auto collision and go work at a body shop and you can make $150,000 a year painting cars.
All
And
day
that's
long.
normal now in a production collision shop. That's where the money's at, earning wise. For me, it wasn't fulfilling though. It was fun. I did for 7 years, I think, cool cars and nice vacations and big house and all this stuff, and I don't know, wore out. I have my son and I'm building these cars in my garage and I'm like, there's just something eating at me that I was like, when we moved, I was like, if I don't do this now, I never will because I'll move up there, I'll get another job, I'll buy another house, I'll buy another cool car. My wife traded in her Audi Q7 on a Hyundai Santa Fe.
Wow.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate that.
That's
And
awesome, dude. That's somebody who saw your dream and said, let's
yeah,
make this shit happen.
yeah, and we sold everything. We rented a townhouse, and basically, I was using the money from that was liquid from liquidating everything to pay my bills, while my art dream business was making nothing. And immediately I got involved in a project that didn't pay well at all, but there was exposure available there. My business partner Don and Danino, we were in high school together in Citrus County, with Chris and
Snuff Daddy. Where
yeah,
you at, Snuff Daddy?
and so the we just went for it, and this is what we wanted to try to do, and we're still doing it. And we're expanding right now into another bigger facility, and
Wow.
we're still not making tons of money, and I don't care.
You're
My
happy and
life
you're paying the bills.
is fulfilling.
Now, but you just brought up something that I wanted to ask you about. So I think when a lot of us are thinking about restoring the bodies of our cars, this happened to me, and you just kind of had a light bulb moment here. Do you think that production body industry has affected the way people think body work is done? And what I mean by that is, like, here I am with, a Fox body Mustang that I'm like, hey, I want you to redo, the floorboards on this thing because they got rust in them. And you're like, all right, well, look, I'm going to have to get a new floor pan. It's going to take, 4 weeks to get that, matching it, da, da, da. I'll get it to you in 3 months. And people are like, well, fuck that, man. Why can't you just get it done next week? Do you think that production mindset has affected that, how we see
Yeah,
that work?
I've seen plenty of that, and it's taken me a while to learn a bit. This is how it is, and thankfully our reputation has fed us well to where we can call the shots, and it's how it is. We're not calling the shots as in doing whatever we want, but at the same time, sorry, I mean right now it's 2 years before you can get a car in my shop, and
2 years.
and so
Holy shit.
I'm sorry, when we expand we may be able to accommodate that smaller work a little more effectively. Like right now we have all these big builds and like one stall in the shop rotating small jobs. And then they come in, they just want some disc brakes. And then they're like looking at the other cars and, oh, maybe we'll do suspension too. Okay, you want to do that while you're in here? That's fine. And then all of a sudden their car's in here for 8 months and we've done a ton, we got put superchargers on it and, whatever they want. I mean,
I
it's
love
easy
it.
to get out of control here.
I love it. Yeah, we got a nice one here up by me called Ensign Auto Body. And he's up here in the capital region. But he was actually a guy who educated me personally on a lot of this. guy's name's Bob, but I wanted to get your feel on it. Is there when do you just tell somebody, and I know we talked a little bit about the cars themselves, but is there ever a point like you just tell somebody no? Like
Yeah.
my wife's 66. I was like, Bob, I'm gonna bring this over to you. I want you to redo it. He looked at it, he goes, dude, it's gonna cost you right about $50,000 for me to get this car to look like you want it to look when it rolled off the floor. And it's not worth 12 when it's done.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, really? He's like, go drive it and enjoy it. Do you ever just tell people that, like, please go enjoy it?
Absolutely. I've convinced so many people not to be my customer with a good conscience, and like, really, you're upset about these little chips and this? Here's some touch-up paint. Okay, now the chips are gone,
Right.
and
Have a
enjoy it.
nice day.
And not that brass or rash, if
I
you
know what you
will,
mean.
like,
Yeah.
I have a real conversation with them and let them see, the other side, and usually they're receptive. I mean, I've had guys with big money that I given the option. I still, I'm like, you don't have to go all the way. Like, we did a car for this guy that became good buddies with Keith, and he we ended up building this Bel Air for him that we bought a super nice Bel Air to start with. It was already on an Art Morrison chassis and had big brakes on it and a big block and a 5-speed and beautiful paint. But it was a little dated looking. So it was really more of a modernization and styling of it and bringing it to the next level, and put a lot more money into it after that. But then he had a very special car that took less than half the time to build, and then I think it was like 8 months later, after it was done, he decided he did want to do a build, and so he sold it, and he sold it for what he had in it.
That's
uh, you
awesome.
know and so that was a fair shake in my book.
Absolutely. Now, I know we've talked about a couple different things. Is there any cars out there right now? Like I've been seeing a lot of Ford Falcons. Like, and it may be just that effect that they say once you see one, then you start noticing them. Like that's an older car that I would like to redo, but really top on my list right now for my next is a Fox Body Mustang
Yeah, yeah.
because
I
I
mean,
feel
our
like
generation is all these things are lighting on fire,
right.
because there's guys in our age group that did want these in high school. When I mean, you're about the same age as
I'm
me.
47. Yep.
Yeah, so same age. And in high school, I was jealous of the guys that had the Fox body or
Right.
the IROC, and like it was,
Exact. Oh,
you
the
know,
IROC Z. Yeah. Get a mullet and everything.
and
But
they're in the high end build hot rod world. Those cars are starting to see the light of day and
are they
get
now?
full Monty. I mean, George Panier Rad Rides has a IROC Camaro they're building. It's probably over $1 million build.
Well, that kind of leads me into it. Is there anything out there that if somebody said to you like George's son has the 79. I miss my 80 every day. Um, but George's son has a 79. That's a kind of a hard car to find still right now. They're out there. There's some places you can find them. But is there anything that you would tell someone if they were like, "Hey, I want to have a father-son bonding kind of thing where they watch some movie and the father and listen, if you want to lose your kids, try building a car with them. Um, there will be cussing, there will be throwing of things. It's not like the movies. It'll be a lot of like, I didn't say to get me a flathead. I said a Phillips head, you son of. That's what it's going to sound like. But is there any car out there that you would say, hey, these are pretty readily available. You can find them. They might be beat up, but it's a good, if you want to get into like a hot rod, look cool car that you could still find.
It's really hard to say. Like, for me, I'm not really a market guy. I don't really pay attention to the market as far as what's valuable, what's not, what's easy to find. It's really, my suggestion is browse Facebook Marketplace in your local area, and if something looks cool and is in an attractive budget range, then go check it out. If for nothing else than the experience to go check out a car. If you don't really know what you're looking at and don't know what you're getting into, probably not a bad idea to hire somebody to come with you and inspect that car. I've had people send me around the country to inspect cars,
Oh,
that
really?
they're going to buy a car, that's 20 states away and is $80,000. And they're sending it to me like they're just going to go ahead and buy it. I'm like, well, don't you want to look at it? And it's a good idea, because I've had customers send me to places and I called them, I looked at pictures, and it was just falsely advertised, and then it gets a thumbs down. I get back on the plane and come home.
So it wasn't a Toyota Corolla?
What's that?
It wasn't a Toyota Corolla
No,
they sent you to go look at?
No, there are quite a few of those. I mean, they all look good in pictures. There's usually a certain level that you can just snoop out and be like, okay, this isn't even worth bothering,
Yeah, why spend
entertaining.
the time on it?
Well, there's some, and that enjoy it and want a certain car. I mean, a customer of mine, he bought a Bronco for his wife for
What
their
year?
anniversary. I think it was a 76.
Okay.
First gen.
First gen. Okay.
And he originally sent me one, and it was scary looking. And he had actually had an inspector look at it, and he sent me the inspection report, and the inspector was terrible. And like that could have gone wrong.
Buddy, it was his neighbor. My neighbor will inspect it. Don't worry.
Probably, I don't know. And then I was like, oh, I'll help you look. And man, Broncos are up there in the market.
My God.
I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I go, man. And he had sent me another one that looked really nice. And I was like, oh, that's too much. And then I started looking more, and I'm like, you might need to look at that one you sent me originally, And then he's like, will you come with me? And I was like, sure. So we did a 1-day Mississippi and back trip and came home with the Bronco, and it was damn nice. It had some issues, but for market, it justified it. You can fix the things that are wrong with it and still be in a good spot, and get a pretty awesome vehicle.
I had a 96 Bronco XL. Love that thing.
Yeah, that was the OJ Bronco.
Yeah, that's the OJ Bronco. If you own a Bronco too, or you're telling me, or you own one of these new Broncos, they suck. I'm sorry. The new Broncos are ugly. They're not what they're not what the American public wanted for. They're not any interesting thing about it. We wanted you to bring back the big Bronco. We wanted the 2-door sporty, I can take the back cap off of it. What I did not want is this impotent looking thing that I'm like, because if you're a Jeep person, you're going to hate me in a minute. Jeeps are the most feminine SUV on the planet. I promise you. I want you to look for something, Sip. I promise you, next time you see a Jeep, it's a woman driving it. A Wrangler.
My brother and his whole family is big into Jeeps, and
Wranglers. Every time I turn around, it's a woman driving it. They are the worst. And the second loudest car I've ever been in. The loudest was a Subaru WRX STI.
Oh, yeah.
Loudest. Like even with stock, it was loud. But so now you were talking about traveling all over the place, and I don't know if you got an answer for this, but is there any? And we joked about it at the beginning, like Florida is salt air. I'll be honest with you. If somebody told me, "Hey, I found this amazing car in Florida, why don't you come look at it?" I would probably be apprehensive. I really would be, because of so much salt content and salt in the air. Is there any place though that you would say to folks, or does this even exist anymore, where you would say, hey, if you're going to go look for classic cars or ones that are going to have less rust or you might be able to deal with, where you would say, hey, start here. This is where we're finding them right now, or people are bringing to you from these places.
I mean, like Arizona, that western dry climate areas are usually real good metal preservative areas. I've got some unusually nice cars out of the Midwest, like Missouri, and and they have heavy winters and stuff. But I don't know, like I've got some really great. We did a long time ago. I was working at a restoration shop, and we did a tow truck for MGM Studios, and it was just a display truck for the theme park, and they brought it. They already had one, and this thing was rotten. So we needed to source a new truck body, and it had like a fake boom on it that was just a lot of iron welded together, but that looked like a tow truck boom. And we got this 53 Chevy grain truck. Start, ran, drove, everything. It was like $5,500, I think. And when we were doing the body, the doors on this thing, I stripped, primed, blocked, and painted. Not a lick of body filler or anything.
Wow, nothing.
Perfect. And there's a little bit of wrinkles on the fenders and stuff like that to fix. But and at the end, it was kind of sad because it was Disney owned. Like they're there every week, and they want paint samples, and they want to check how much weight can be handled by the rear view mirror. They got a lot of insurance codes to follow. And then right before they pick it up, they told us, make sure there's no gas, no oil, fill the engine with water, fill the gas tank with water, and make sure this is immobilized. And you can't open the doors from the outside. So we had like a hidden cable to open the hood, and then a cable inside the engine bay to open the door so they could actually sit in it and move it to where they needed to.
Wow,
We had to meet all these standards. It was sad. Like, oh, we just killed the truck.
wow, that's crazy. Now you also just touched on another thing. If somebody's going out there to look, and obviously you're a professional, you're the guy that's going to look at it and go, I see a wave there. That's orange peel. Oh, you've got drips. If you don't know what any of that is, folks, I did learn how to do some body work. I'm not good at it. I hate painting, but I know the terms. But what are some of the things, like body wise? Obviously, I think most of us, if I go and I sit down in the seat and the damn thing don't crank over, or I've got a puddle of oil underneath of it, I know there's a problem there. If it smells like mouse piss, guess what? There's a mouse that's been living in it. But what are some of the things from a body wise that maybe the average person doesn't know? You mentioned body filler, Bondo. What are some of the things to be able to tell, or how can you tell if those things are there?
Well, I mean, it's a misconception if it has it on it at all that it's a problem. Our show cars, we skim coat them head to toe, every square inch of it, block it out until you're back to the metal, and the little minor waves have a little bit of filler to make it perfectly straight. It's a great product, the good ones that are out there, and used properly, keyword, are nothing wrong with. I'm looking for, if I'm looking at nice cars for customers, that they're buying, and as I'm spending the money on a car that's already nice because I don't want to go through the paint process. I like to know how old, when it got painted, because the older it had been done and how it looks now is a big proof of its ability to last. The televised auctions really exploded, I don't know,
I love
15 years ago, maybe even less. And it drove a lot of garbage into the market because people saw, oh my God, look at that car. It sold for $80,000. I can't believe that. I can do it for 30. And then, and people would, and meanwhile, that car that sold for 80 cost 150 to build, and so they're cutting every corner using the lowest of the cheap products. Oh, there's a rust hole, fill it up and splack it down, and when it's just freshly done, why'd you just finish restoring your car and now you want to sell it?
Right. You're not even going to enjoy it.
That's a alarm right from the get-go, and so, there's a lot to look for. If you got look at the edge of your door, the inside of your fender lips, and stuff like that. You got Bondo hanging off the edges. Usually, a car that's sloppily done will have plenty of evidence all over it that shows you that it wasn't done well, and the abuse of materials. That's a good way to put it, because all the materials are good to use in the right form. But looking for those kind of things, you can see images of stuff in the paint. I mean, if it's a super high end car that is asking a super high end price, now we're looking down the side of it and seeing how straight it is and how well the gaps line up, and that's getting really technical. But if they're demanding a lot of money for it, they
Right.
expect to get a high quality vehicle. And so there's a lot of different levels. Or if you want me to hunt a donor car for a restaurant, my dream is a '69 Camaro, and and I want you to find, but I want to build it. Okay, well, I want to start with a good car. If you're like, well, my dad left me this '69 Camaro, and I want to restore it because it was my dad's, and that happens a lot, and you have this super emotional, sentimental driving force. Does your wallet match? And there's an easier way. I mean, they sell brand new bodies for those cars. They're still stamped aftermarket parts that they're assembled from, but they're brand new metal. You don't just
You just drop it on there and be done with it.
well, you don't just sand it and paint it and you're done. I mean, there's a lot of metal work left
Oh,
to
is
make,
there? Okay.
to dial it in, and look, depending on the level of car you want to do, or a lot of times we'll find a very good condition old car, that doesn't have a lot of rot. When you got cars, especially like the non-full frame cars that are relying on that body to be part of its strength, Mustangs and Camaros and all these, and yeah, when like all the understructure is kind of flaky around all the edges, I call that a soft car. And if you just clean that up and make it look better, and then bolt it all together and put a higher horsepower motor and stickier tires and performance suspension, and the whole car is like cracking and breaking, you can't build a car out of that. And so, I mean, there are so many different ways, though, to go about it, depending on budget. I mean, you can have $30,000 and have a very nice classic car, super
Absolutely.
nice. I mean, you can have, I mean, today, popular cars are hard to even touch. A rusty one for 10 grand. But, it's the car you start with, and kind of knowing your end objective is important. I always suggest just buy a car you can afford and drive it for a while and see if you actually like owning a classic car. A lot of people never have. I mean, my dad had an El Camino when I was younger and an old C10, and I didn't really think much of them. I thought they were neat and, or whatever. They weren't like high end cars, they were just old cars. I mean, probably not that old at that time.
At that point, no, they were just
Right.
cars.
But it was just you can drive. But a lot of people, okay, I got my mom's old Nissan Altima, and for my first car, and that's a pretty nice car, as
Yeah, they
far
were
as
good cars.
technology and engineering and a well put together machine. Then you're like, oh, I mean, I had a customer, he bought his son 71 Camaro for his 16th birthday.
The fuck.
And I'm like,
Second generation with those big. They had the big fish eyes. Great car, but God, what
that. So
16-year-old needs a 71 Camaro?
well, and that was it. He brought it to me and wanted me to do a special It was a nice car, and I'm like, why don't you give it to your son for his 16th birthday as it is,
Yeah,
and then figure out if he likes owning uh
right.
71 Camaro when he's, a rich kid and all his friends have BMWs and stuff like that,
Nah.
and then we can redo it if he's in love with it, and he's like, yeah, you're right. And then a month later, he's like, no, I want to do it. I want him to have it for, he wanted to do something special for his son. And I can't, it's not
That's
wrong.
great.
Okay, fine. So we did it. and we did a really cool paint job on the car, and and some updates and this and that. It wasn't a full build, but and then his son was blown away when he got it, and then he's like, "Dad, I gotta pump the gas pedal twice just to get this thing to start."
So,
But he wasn't cut out for it.
right, it's a different
and so
world.
he's like, "I want Tahoe." And hey, that's some people are. Not everybody's a car person. The car people is a very small percentage of this world in actuality. Like not everybody is. Less people are not, or less people are than not.
Your dad wanted a Camaro growing up, is what that was, and we're getting close to closing the bar up here in a little bit. But I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute there, Zip. I'm going to put you in the spot.
All right.
Is there a car? Person comes in, and I'm not saying from a business standpoint, like, hey, I'll take the loss on this, but somebody brought into you and said, hey, I want to restore this car, where regardless, you would be like, yeah, we're going to restore this. Like the first thing that comes to me is like a Yanko, anything that fell under that Yanko tag, to me is exactly, if I just love the story of the Yanko. But is there anything like that? If somebody came into you, regardless of how much work it was going to need, you would be like, yeah, we're going to restore this.
I mean, that kind of happens a lot. But really, when someone brings something unique, like for me, this is a way to do what I love for a living and really get to exercise skills and the ability to manage a team of talented artists that are all crazy characters in themselves. And I mean, we're building a Hot Wheels replica. Actually,
Tell me about that.
That right there.
Now that's which one is it? It's the Frankenstein, right?
Eric Steen rod.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, this is probably the coolest build we've ever been involved in. I mean, it's just insane. And I mean, and this is not just built to look like it. It's built to function as a vehicle. He can go out with his wife and son and daughter, and go to dinner, or do burnouts around the parking lot, or hook up his gooseneck trailer and tow another hot rod on the back. And we're planning on driving this thing to SEMA. Yeah. And hopefully we get there and without too much.
I got taco blood, man.
Oh, that's you heard that one, right?
I got taco blood, man.
I got tiger blood, man. Brother. So, but is there one for you though? I'm gonna ask it again. Is there one though for you, Zip? You want this to come in the door tomorrow? Like this thing comes in the door tomorrow. You haven't seen one. You've heard about them, and you're like, yeah, this comes in the door tomorrow. I don't care if it's just a steering wheel and a flake of paint. We're doing that.
There's, I mean, it's another custom. I was a total Dukes of Hazzard nut growing up. Like. I love that. But I've never seen a generally done the way I wish it was done. I've seen them done where they've modded them and put a bunch of horsepower and put different wheels and different interiors or whatever, but they always are just a regular body shape.
Right.
And like, I really would like to do more of a Hot Wheels, radical version of a generally. That's one, but really when people bring a cool idea, that's what really floats my boat. I don't have. Everyone always asks, "What car do you want?" And I have no idea. All
right, I got one for you. You ready?
All right.
1976 Gran Torino, Starsky and Hutch style.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there was a neighbor across the street from my grandmother that had one.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, I feel like that's a car you could find though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think a lot of people are running around like, can I get me a 76 boat?
Right. I mean, there's some of that stuff's seeing its day, especially like with Bring a Trailer and things like that. I mean, that's a whole other topic there. Like people just go nuts on that place, and and drive the prices up of stuff.
Oh yeah. But I feel like that's one that you could do, because it's almost to me like there's a group of cars in the 70s that we forgot about.
Yeah,
Those big boat, two-door coupe boat cars that we skipped right over to the 80 square body. What are those, G bodies? Is that right?
right. Like the Grand
Like
National and
the Grand
Monte
National,
Carlo. Yeah,
and everybody's running around with the square bodies. But I feel like there's that whole 70s, like,
yeah. I think it's when, I mean, obviously I was born in '76, so I didn't experience it.
right,
But you usually look over 1978 Lincoln Mark 8 or whatever, a
whatever.
two-door car. I've seen them, $8,000 mint condition,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I could actually afford that. And then I'm like, well, I guess you can put some big wheels and slam it down and make it cool. And but when do I have time to do? I mean, shoot, I got a 29 Durant in the container out
What's
back
a
here.
Durant? What is a Durant?
It's a William Durant was a partner in Chevrolet in the very beginning, and then split. Yeah, I guess he was. I learned all this after I bought the car. I bought a cowl panel and grill, and then made the rest out of sheet metal because we got back from SEMA and had no work at the shop, and so I was trying to build something to like promote with, and then eventually sell. But then we got busy, so got put off to the side, and it lives in a container, and that's kind of my meter. Is either one day it's going to be on the shop floor being built, or I'm going to sweep it out of the container into a garbage can because it'll be totally wasted away.
I agree with you, Nate. The Mustang and Gone in 60 Seconds.
Eleanor is a super popular car.
It here's one, because we're getting close here. The Gone in 60 Seconds Mustang or the Bullet Mustang?
Right.
Like, which one would you rather have? I'm going to go with Bullet, but I'm a Steve McQueen guy.
Right.
Like, I mean, Steve McQueen is way cooler than Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, for sure on that.
And he really actually raced.
I'd take the Eleanor just because it is a higher performance car.
Yeah,
but the like I've seen the Bullet in person.
Oh, really?
It's an old car. You know what I mean? It sold for like several million at auction here, and it's just an old car though. Don't drive that great. You know what I mean? And then you have a car, these old cars with modern suspension. I mean, when we do our full builds and you drive them, you're like, holy shit, this is awesome.
It's a totally different animal at that.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up a great point. Like, my wife's 66. When you drive it, you can swing that steering wheel 6 inches either way before it actually ever turns.
Right.
And you're like, if you don't know what you're doing in that car, and the nose is so long on it based on where you're sitting at, you don't know what you're doing swinging that around. It's going to hurt when it hits something. Well, it's going to hurt something, because you ain't going to feel shit. It's nothing, but you're wrapped in steel in that thing. So, any shows or anything coming up anywhere where people can find you? Obviously, we've said it a couple times now. You can definitely go into streetmetalconcepts.com or factoryish.com. All of these guys, if you want to know what Zip's got going on, every social media is going to be at Street Metal Concepts. It's spelled just like it sounds, Street Metal Concepts. You can find them on everywhere. Where you got anything else coming up?
Myself and my partner Kirk Hansen, we started our podcast recently. I think we've done 5 episodes so far. We're doing another one this Friday. We're releasing them on YouTube, and then we started with that, and then we got it actually on a real podcast network, and we're kind of learning the ropes. It's really a automotive culture based podcast, so it's a place we talk about different cars, the business, there's a lot of aspiring guys out there. Like I've learned a lot from stuff I've done wrong, and I'm happy to share those stories and maybe help someone not make so many mistakes.
Let me tell you about the shit I broke.
Right, right. I mean, we don't really have like a show circuit. We're usually down at NSRA in Tampa every December, and we're probably going to start hitting some other bigger shows, like a little traveling. We kind of got a large amount of high end cars done, and it would really do us well to bring those out and show them. Most of the time we finish them and they're gone and you don't see them anymore. And most of our customers don't care about car shows. They
Just
want
want the car.
their super badass high end hot rod to use it and drive it. And I kind of like that, that it's not just a show pony, but at the same time, it's nice if you can use it and go to shows with it.
Well, we'll tie this one in together. Remember, what was the Stephen King movie with the car? That was
Christine, that's another
Christine.
car. There's a lot of those like iconic cars that I'd like to do a version of.
Do a version.
You
Well,
know,
well, we got our boy Brandon just popped in from Paranormal at the Funhouse. Maybe Brandon and you could hook up. He does paranormal investigations, and you could find a haunted car, and he'll go ahead and go through everything, and he'll see if he can contact the spirits that were in the car.
I like that.
I mean, we could just do this. You could do a. There you go. Oh, you should redo one of the Twisted Metal cars from the show and the car. Oh, I love the show. It was so good.
Yeah, that was a good show. I just caught that recently.
Oh, you should definitely finish. They did a great job with it. And I didn't realize that the guy who plays the clown Sweet Tooth, it's Samoa Joe, the pro wrestler.
Ah,
It's Samoa Joe. I was like, well, look at that shit. Because I saw him in an interview. But look, folks, if you're looking for car stuff, you're looking to find out about cars, you have something, or you got a question, check out Zip's podcast, check out what they've got going on there. Make sure you're going on to streetmetalconcepts.com. You're finding on Facebook and Instagram at Street Metal Concepts, factoryish.com. See what they got happening. These guys are willing to tell you whether it's worth it or not. And that's the biggest thing that so many of us need to hear is it worth it or not to get done what you got to get done? If you're finding us through Zip, look, I say this every week, you may think it's cliche, but take the moment, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share. That 5-star rating on Apple means that much. That's how Zip gets found out about, other than amazing car shows and building amazing cars and all these other things that he does. It's so amazing. I mean, fuck it. Don't give Zip nothing. I don't care. Fuck that, man. That's bullshit. No, but if you're finding us through Zip, look, give us a 5-star rating, give us a like, share, and follow. If you're finding Zip through us, make sure you're going onto their social media. Give them those likes, those follows, that little bit of love. It may seem like something cliche to you that takes half a second for you to just click follow or click like, but it matters to us. It's how we get things going. It's how people find out about us and what we've got going on. If you're looking to get into cars, this is going to be my big advice. And Zip, chime in with what you're thinking here, but go to your local car show and see what's going on at your local car show. And I promise you, you're going to find out about something or a car that you didn't realize that was out there, anything that could be going on. And a lot of times those guys are selling what they have, and you might be able to pick up something that somebody's already spent all the money to have it restored, and you can get it on the cheap. So something to think about there.
yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if you guys have a lot of cars and coffee events up there. There's a whole bunch of them around here. I went to this big one last weekend, and it was kind of every age group, every car genre. There's classic imports, modern imports, high-end exotics, classic muscle cars, American muscle, young kids, old people, everything. And I was like, this is cool, where everybody's getting exposed to each other's thing, and there's something to take from all of it, and to any of your listeners, if you have questions at all, look up through the website or phone number, email. I'm happy to answer. I believe in education to people and try to avoid the bad mistakes that many make.
We all make them. And next week, folks, we got Tim. It's going to be an interesting one. The Above the Bar podcast is meeting up with Above Ground podcast with Tim. He's a local guy here in the Albany area, and we're talking mental health. We're always big about that around here. So make sure you tune in with us next week, see what we got going on there. Now, we have a tradition around here, Zip. You got to listen. You heard Leland, and I know Leland was wild last week. We're all breathing better because of Leland. It's happening right now. But if you caught at the end of that show, we have a tradition around here. The guest always gets the final word, and don't log off afterwards. We got to talk for a minute. So the guest always gets the final word. Zip, what's the final word for everybody?
Just enjoy life and, have a fun ride.
All righty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.